Welcome back to The Person Everyone Needs. I'm Webb Hoggard, and we're continuing to talk about Jonathan. This is really the last chapter of his story, and so as we're kind of digging into this part, we're talking about his legacy. So David, during the time that he was the fugitive, David on the run wasn't flawless in this season of his life. He made some terrible decisions. He ran to Ahimelech, the priest, to get something to eat, and he lied to him. He took the holy bread. This was seen as aiding the enemy of Saul. So Ahimelech was murdered by Saul shortly after this meeting, and this would haunt David for many years. He then runs to Gath, the hometown of Goliath, with Goliath's sword strapped to him. Entering the town and seeking refuge, the ruler seeks to kill him. David has to act like a lunatic to get out of there. Foaming from the mouth, he spooks the Philistines, and they let him run away instead of killing him like they had planned. The ancient world feared the insane, and David realizes this is the only tactic to escape. He runs to Moab, and his family flees for fear of being killed by Saul. He gains a small army of worthless men there, moves back into the Judean hills. David defeats a couple of strongholds of enemy nations, and Saul hears of it and begins to run him down. Saul chases David through the wilderness, and David outruns him the whole time. On 2 different occasions, David could have killed Saul, but chose not to harm God's anointed. During this pursuit, Jonathan manages to sneak into David's camp for one last meeting. 1 Samuel 23 says that Jonathan strengthened David's hand in the Lord. What an incredible friend. He didn't attempt to be David's strength. He didn't try to diminish Saul's anger any longer. He knew David was the one God had chosen, and the only way to make it was to strengthen himself in God. He put the strength of the Lord he had received into David. Here, they made their third and final covenant. This time, Jonathan declared that the throne would be David's, and he hoped to be at his right hand. Can you see the level of honor Jonathan is giving to David? He has placed David's destiny before and above his own. No greater love has anyone than he who lays down his life for his friend. David had learned a valuable lesson on this day. He learned to strengthen his hand in the Lord. This phrase is used to convey David's confidence during one of the saddest days of his outlaw years. While his army was returning from another battle, some Amalekites had attacked the city of Ziklag, where David and his army lived. They had taken every woman, child, and animal and burned the city to the ground. David had lost everything. At this moment, the men who had come to call him leader, mourning and enraged, turned against David and are ready to stone him. David strengthened his hand in the Lord. David squares his shoulders and says, "Kill me or let me go get them back." The men ferociously chased down this band of raiders and killed every single one in that band, except a few cowards who fled on camels. Every woman, child, and animal was returned unharmed. Scripture describes it as every single hoof returned with them back to Ziklag. This victory happened because he learned how to be strengthened by God, and Jonathan taught him how. The chase for David continued as long as there was no other enemies. While the Philistines continued to pursue and attack Israel, Saul became afraid that he may lose the war. He can't seem to get God to talk to him anymore, so he seeks out a psychic. A major issue with finding one of those in Israel is that, King Saul himself has removed all mediums. He sends his men to find someone who still works in the forbidden field and asks her to contact Samuel, the old, trusted preacher who had been dead for many years. He never recovered. Saul, from the moment he looked at the crowd and became fearful of losing them, he tried to get around God's expectations. He knows and trusts Samuel, but never sought the heart of God for himself. He was a coward. He never lived full-hearted. He was afraid of the kingship, the people he was supposed to lead, the Philistines He was afraid of David and losing his throne for the rest of his days. He lived in fear. He hides and makes bad vows and chases heroes and murders priests and calls on mediums. He always wanted to look like a man of faith, but always came out a coward. Fear ruled his life. If only he had put his trust in God. The closest thing to faith Saul ever shows in his trust is his trust in Samuel the prophet. This image, which shows what the medium conjures up, tells Saul that he has been rejected and will die in battle. Saul's retreat of faith would come to an end that next day. He dies on the field of battle. He and all his sons are taken out in one day. Even our hero Jonathan is killed in battle. This marks a divine shift in Israel's direction. The royal family is taken out in one day, and now the stage is set for Jonathan's covenant to come to pass. David becomes the new king, and he mourns both Saul and Jonathan, writing, Saul and Jonathan, beloved and lovely. In life and in death they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles. They were stronger than lions. You daughters of Israel, weep over Saul, who clothed you luxuriously in scarlet, who put ornaments of gold on your apparel. How the mighty have fallen in the midst of the battle. Jonathan lies slain on your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant have you been to me. Your love to me was extraordinary, surpassing the love of women. How the mighty have fallen, and the weapons of war perished. 2 Samuel chapter 1. At the very end, Jonathan, still loyal to his father and king, still lives the life of the prince of Israel and strong warrior of God. He prepares the way for the next king in every way, even in his death. In 1 Samuel, we see the apathy of Eli, who refuses to change even when he knows his whole family will pay the consequences. The anger of Samuel when the people of Israel refused his sons as their next leaders. The cowardice of Saul is on constant display. But Jonathan lived as a man of favor, valor, and honor. He lived out faith, hope, and love, strong and courageous to the end. The mark of Jonathan's greatness was most bright in David. David becomes the bright star of the kingdom of Israel, the unifying king who defeats and defends on all fronts, the CEO-type leader who designs the government to bring unity to God's people, the fundraiser for Solomon's magnificent temple. David never forgot Jonathan. After years of conquest and building Israel, David seeks to know if there is anyone from the house of Saul that he can bless. He learns that Jonathan has one surviving son. Sadly, as the family of Saul fled the capital, Mephibosheth fell and was irreversibly maimed in his legs. He was lame for the rest of his life. This was apparently so debilitating that the writer of 2 Samuel cannot mention him without reminding the reader that he is crippled. David immediately sends for him to come to the palace. Mephibosheth bows as he enters, and David greets him by saying, "Do not fear, for I will show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan." He remembers the covenant and gives all of Saul's land to Mephibosheth, taking it from Saul's servant Ziba. Ziba was ordered to serve Mephibosheth just like he had served Saul. During the Iron Age, when strength and power were on grand display, having a crippled person eat at your table was not glamorous. There was no points for being inclusive or politically correct, yet David invited Mephibosheth to his table for the rest of his life. No wheelchairs, no ramps. Every night, someone would carry Mephibosheth to the table of the king. King David treated the son of his best friend as well as Jonathan had treated him. During a time in David's reign, Ziba and Mephibosheth had a falling out that damaged David's view of both. Yet, out of honor for Jonathan, Mephibosheth remained at the king's table all his days. The last time we see Mephibosheth's name, David is settling a political debt owed by Saul by giving up several of Saul's family members. Once again, he honors Jonathan by sparing his son alone. Jonathan made a covenant with David that exalted David higher than himself. Covenants of friendship, family, and of David's exaltation would actually be carried out by David. What was meant to be a promotion for David became a responsibility for him. to remain true to the end. Jonathan was willing to sacrifice his place on the throne and ensured his son's place at the king's table. Honor is powerful. Jonathan inspired so many people in his life. He influenced soldiers and citizens as the prince of the land. He invited many into greater conquest and adventure. He invested in the life and leadership of David. His greatest contribution was what he left in others. Your legacy is not what you leave behind, but who you leave behind. And the people who are motivated to make sure they make a difference in their life, so they take care of others, they're kind, they teach them how to strengthen their hand in the Lord. That's a person that everyone needs.